I'm Gloria Jean Williams. I'm 68 years old, and I've learned that the sharpest knife in your back is usually held by the hand you used to feed. I spent my entire life building a foundation for my family, sacrificing my sanity and my sleep to ensure they stood on solid ground. I gave them a debt-free education, a funded wedding, and a down payment on their first home, totaling over $200,000. In return, they handed me a slow death sentence wrapped in a smile and a bottle of pills. They looked at me and saw a trembling, senile old woman who was good for nothing but writing checks and changing bed. They thought they were leaving behind a helpless relic to rot in a house that smelled of sickness. They didn't know I was a retired school principal who knows exactly how to identify the troublemakers and bring the whole system down on their heads. They didn't know I had stopped taking my blood pressure medication just to stay awake long enough to watch them. By Monday morning, they will be wearing orange jumps, and I will be the one visiting them behind glass. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. The alarm clock didn't ring. I didn't need it to. My internal clock had been wired to the rhythm of the ventilator for 9 years. The machine hissed, clicked, and sighed, a mechanical lung breathing for the man who used to sing Marvin Gaye in the shower. I sat up, my joints popping like dry twigs, and rubbed the sleep from my eyes. The room was dim, lit only by the green glow of the pulse oximeter clipped to Raymond's finger. I swung my legs out of bed and placed my feet on the cold hardwood floor. The cold was good. It woke me up. I walked to the window and pulled the curtain back just an inch. East 71st Street was empty. The world was still asleep, oblivious to the prison cell my home had become. I turned to Raymond. He lay perfectly still. His salt and pepper hair was cropped close to his scalp. His face was pale, waxy, devoid of the lines that laughter used to etch around his eyes. He looked like a statue carved from marble, beautiful and cold. "Good morning, Ray," I whispered, my voice rasping in the quiet room. He didn't answer. He never answered. I began the routine. It was a dance of muscle memory and exhaustion. First, the sheets. I stripped the bed with practiced efficiency, rolling him gently to one side, tucking the clean linen underneath his dead weight, then rolling him back. He was lighter than he used to be. The wasting illness of paralysis had carved the meat from his bones, leaving him fragile and bird-like. I checked the feeding tube. The formula was running low. I disconnected the bag, my hands shaking slightly as I mixed the new batch. The powder smelled like vanilla and chalk. I poured it in, watching the beige liquid flow down the clear plastic line, disappearing into his stomach. It was fuel, not food. It kept the engine running, but the car was stuck in the garage. I moved to his legs. Range of motion exercises. I lifted his right leg, bending the knee, pushing the heel toward his hip. 1, 2, 3. I did this 10 times on each side. His limbs were stiff, fighting me with the silent resistance of spasticity. I massaged his calves, my rough thumbs working the knots out of his atrophied muscles. "You need to run a marathon one of these days, Ray," I muttered, the joke falling flat in the silence. I walked to the bathroom to wash my hands. I looked in the mirror. The face staring back was a ruin. Deep trenches lined my forehead. My eyes were sunken, rimmed with red. My hair was wrapped in a faded silk scarf. I looked like a woman who had survived a shipwreck only to starve on a deserted island. I went to the kitchen to make coffee. The house was too big for one ghost and one statue. The living room was dominated by the hospital bed, the medical cart, the boxes of supplies. My old recliner was pushed into the corner, piled high with unopened mail. I poured the coffee, black and bitter, just like my thoughts. I walked to the back door and looked out at the yard. The shed was there, Raymond's workshop. It used to be his sanctuary. The smell of wood glue, the whine of the jigsaw, the smooth feel of sanded pine. I hadn't stepped foot in there since the accident. The tools were rusting. The wood was warping, just like me. I sat down at the kitchen table and opened the ledger. I tracked every penny I had to. The pension check barely covered the mortgage and the utilities. The medical bills ate the rest. I looked at the balance. It was red, always red. The doorbell rang at 2 o'clock sharp. It was Saturday, the visitation hour. I wiped the crumbs from my lips and shuffled to the door. I unlocked the deadbolt, the chain, the latch. I opened it to find Tanya and Marcus standing on the porch. Tanya looked tired. She always looked tired. She was 42, but she carried herself like a woman of 60. Her blazer was expensive, but it was frayed at the seams. She held a plastic bag from the discount grocery store. Marcus stood a step behind her. He was scrolling on his phone, his thumb flicking up the screen with aggressive speed. He wore a designer tracksuit and sneakers that clicked sharply on the concrete. He didn't look up until I spoke. "Hello, Tanya, Marcus," I said, stepping aside. "Hey mama," Tanya mumbled, brushing past me. She smelled of cigarette smoke and cheap body spray. "Gloria," Marcus said, nodding curtly. He didn't offer a hug. He never did. He walked straight to the living room, his eyes scanning the space like an appraiser looking for value. "How is he?" Tanya asked, dropping the plastic bag on the kitchen counter. I heard the clink of cans. "Cheap soup." "The same," I said. "He's always the same." Tanya walked over to the bed. She looked down at her father. She put her hands in her pockets. She didn't touch him. She just stared, her jaw tight. "He looks peaceful," she said. "He's paralyzed." "Tanya, not peaceful," I snapped. The anger was always there, simmering just below the surface. Marcus walked over and placed a hand on Tanya's shoulder. His nails were manicured, unnaturally clean. "Don't be difficult, Gloria," he said, his voice smooth and condescending. "We're here to help." "Help?" I gestured to the bag on the counter, with 3 cans of soup and a loaf of white bread. "The electricity bill is due, Tanya." The insurance premium went up again. Tanya flinched. She turned away from her father and looked at me. "We're doing our best, Mama. The market is tough right now. My investments, your investments are always just about to pay off," I said. "Meanwhile, I'm selling the furniture to buy catheters." Marcus stepped between us. He was taller than me, and he had a way of making himself look bigger. He glared at me with eyes like polished stone. "We have expenses too, Gloria. Isaiah's tuition, a car lease. You think it's cheap living in the city. You drive a BMW, Marcus," I pointed out. "I drive a 20-year-old Buick that needs a new transmission. Appearances matter in my line of work." He sniffed. "I'm in real estate development. I can't show up to a client meeting in a rust bucket." He turned his back on me and walked to the medical cart. He began rearranging the bottles, his fingers moving quickly. "You're almost out of the baclofen," he said. "I'll call Dr. Evans on Monday for a refill." "I can call him," I said. "No," he said sharply. "I handle the medical coordination. You know that. You get confused with the dosages. Gloria, remember last time?" I didn't remember a last time, but I stayed silent. It was easier than fighting. They sat on the sofa for 20 minutes. We talked about the weather. We talked about the neighbors. We talked about everything except the elephant in the room. Finally, Tanya cleared her throat. She shifted in her seat, rubbing her palms on her knees. "So, Mama," she began, there's a situation." Here it comes, I thought. The toll booth. "What is it?" I asked, keeping my voice flat. "It's the condo," Tanya said. "We have a balloon payment coming up, a big one. If we miss it, the bank is going to foreclose. We'd lose everything." "How much?" I asked. Tanya looked at Marcus. He gave a barely perceptible nod. 5,000, Tanya said. "Just a bridge loan. I have a deal closing next month. I can pay you back with interest." "I don't have $5,000, Tanya," I said. "I have $300 in the checking account." "What about the savings?" Marcus asked. "The emergency fund." "That is the emergency fund. For Raymond," I said. "If the ventilator breaks, if the generator fails, this is an emergency." "Gloria," Marcus's voice rose, sharp and shrill, "your grandson will be on the street." I looked at the heart monitor on the bedside table. It beeped rhythmically. Beep, beep, beep. Suddenly, the rhythm changed. Beep, beep, beep. It sped up. I looked at the screen. His heart rate had jumped from 70 to 95. "He can hear you," I said. "Lower your voice." "He can't hear anything," Marcus scoffed. "He's a vegetable, Gloria. Stop projecting." "He is my husband," I shouted, standing up. My hands were shaking. "And you will not speak about him like that in his own house." Tanya stood up, holding her hands out. Okay, calm down." Marcus didn't mean it. "Look, Mama, please, we're desperate. Just this once." I looked at my daughter. I saw the fear in her eyes, or maybe it was just pathetic weakness. I hated myself for what I was about to do. "I'll write a check," I whispered. "But this is the last time. There is nothing left." I walked to the desk. I pulled out the checkbook. My hand trembled as I wrote the numbers. 5000. It was blood money. I was bleeding myself dry to feed the leeches. I tore the check out and handed it to Tanya. She snatched it, her eyes lighting up with relief. "Thanks, Mama. You won't regret this." "I already do," I said. Marcus smiled, a tight, victorious stretching of his lips. "We should go." "Traffic?" They left 3 minutes later. The door clicked shut. The silence rushed back in, heavy and suffocating. I walked to the bed. Raymond's heart rate was still high. 92, 90. It's okay, Ray, I soothed, stroking his forehead. They're gone. They're gone. Tuesday morning brought a gray sky and a heavy rain that battered the roof tiles. The house felt damp. I was in the kitchen washing dishes when I heard the alarm. It wasn't the rhythmic beep of the heart monitor. It was the high-pitched continuous wail of the ventilator pressure alarm. I dropped the plate. It shattered on the floor. I ran. I skidded into the living room. Raymond was turning blue. His chest wasn't rising. The machine was screaming. Obstruction. No, 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 I gasped. I reached for the suction catheter. I jammed it into the tracheostomy tube. I swirled it around, trying to clear the mucus plug. Nothing. His lips were purple. His eyes were wide open, staring at the ceiling in a fixed, glassy gaze. I disconnected the ventilator hose. I grabbed the manual resuscitation bag, the ambu bag. I squeezed. Whoosh. I watched his chest. It barely moved. Come on, Ray, breathe. I squeezed again. Harder. Resistance. The air wasn't going in. I grabbed the phone with my left hand while squeezing the bag with my right. I dialed 911. Emergency, the dispatcher said. My husband, respiratory failure, track tube blocked. Send an ambulance. 2847 East 71st Street. Ma'am, stay calm. Is he breathing? I'm bagging him. Send them now. I dropped the phone. I focused on the bag. Squeeze, release, squeeze, release. My forearm burned. Sweat stung my eyes. Don't you die on me, I growled. Not like this. Not while they're out there spending my money. The sirens wailed in the distance, getting louder, cutting through the rain. It felt like hours, but it was only minutes. The paramedics burst through the door. They were young, efficient, a blur of blue uniforms and static chatter. We got it, ma'am. Step back. They took over. They replaced the inner cannula. They pushed drugs. I have a pulse, one shouted. Oxygen sats coming up. 85. 88. I slumped against the wall, sliding down until I hit the floor. My chest heaved. I looked at my hands. They were shaking so hard I couldn't make a fist. We're transporting to University of Chicago Medical Center, the lead paramedic said. You coming? Yes, I wheezed. I'm coming. The emergency room at University of Chicago Medical Center was a chaotic hive of misery. I sat in a plastic chair, clutching a styrofoam cup of lukewarm water. They had taken Raymond behind the double doors hours ago. I waited. I watched the clock on the wall. Tick, tick, tick. Finally, a woman in a white coat approached. She wasn't our usual doctor. She was younger, with sharp features, dark eyes, and her hair pulled back in a tight bun. She moved with a precise, predatory grace. Mrs. Williams. I stood up. Yes. How is he? Stable, the doctor said. I'm Dr. Patricia Russo. I'm the attending neurologist on call neurologist. I frowned. It was a respiratory issue. It was, Dr. Russo said, but during the intake exam, I noticed some irregularities. What kind of irregularities? Dr. Russo gestured to the hallway. Walk with me. We walked away from the noise of the waiting room to a quiet alcove near the nurse's station. Dr. Russo crossed her arms and leaned against the wall, studying me. Your husband's chart says he's been completely paralyzed for 9 years. C for spinal injury, complete severance. That's right, I said. The accident who manages his medications? Dr. Russo asked. I do, mostly. My son-in-law helps. He gets the prescriptions filled. Dr. Russo nodded slowly. And who administers them? We both do. Marcus, my son-in-law. He usually does the evening dose. He says he has a better touch. The evening dose, Dr. Russo repeated. She pulled a tablet from her pocket and tapped the screen. Mrs. Williams, when we stabilized your husband, we ran a standard toxicology panel. It's protocol for respiratory distress to rule out drug interactions. She turned the screen toward me. It was a graph with a red line spiking off the chart. This is his level of diazepam and baclofen, Dr. Russo said. Muscle relaxants and sedatives. He takes those for the spasms. Yes, Dr. Russo said, but the levels in his blood are 4 times the therapeutic dose. This isn't pain management, Mrs. Williams. This is anesthesia. I stared at the screen. The red line looked like a cliff. 4 times, I stammered. That can't be right. The pharmacy may be a mistake. We ran it twice, Dr. Russo said, her voice low and dangerous. There is no mistake. Mrs. Williams, Levels this high would suppress the respiratory drive of a linebacker. In a compromised patient like your husband, it's a miracle he didn't suffocate in his sleep years ago. I don't understand, I said, my head spinning. Why? That is the question, Dr. Russo said. But there's more. She tapped the screen again. An MRI image appeared. I ordered a rapid MRI. I wanted to see the spinal lesion. She pointed to a spot on the grainy gray spine. The injury is severe. Yes, but look here. She traced a faint white line. There is continuity. The cord isn't fully severed. There are pathways intact. She looked me in the eye. In my professional opinion, based on the imaging and the reflexes I elicited when the sedation began to wear off, your husband is not paralyzed. Not completely. The world tilted. The floor seemed to dissolve. What are you saying? I whispered. I'm saying that the only reason he hasn't moved in 9 years is because he's been chemically restrained, Dr. Russo said. He's locked in. He's awake, Mrs. Williams. He's in there. But he's drugged so heavily he cannot lift a finger or form a word. I gagged. Bile rose in my throat. I grabbed the wall to steady myself. Awake, I choked out. For 9 years. Yes, Dr. Russo said, trapped in his own body, screaming in a room where no one could hear him. No, I said, shaking my head violently. No, that's monster talk. Marcus, Tanya, they love him. They visit every week. They bring food. They bring food. Dr. Russo repeated flatly. Do they handle the meds, Marcus? I remembered the way he guarded the pill bottles, the way he insisted on the evening dose. You get confused, Gloria. Dr. Russo, I said, straightening up. Are you accusing my family of poisoning my husband? I am presenting you with medical facts, Dr. Russo said. High toxicity, intact nerve pathways, suppressed reflexes. You were a school principal, weren't you? I saw it on your file. For 30 years, I said automatically. Then look at the pattern, Dr. Russo said. If the foundation is solid, why is the building collapsing? Because someone is taking a sledgehammer to the supports, I whispered. She stepped closer. I am required by law to report this to Adult Protective Services, but investigations take time, and if they get wind of it, they will cover their tracks. They will flush the pills. They will fix the records. What do? I asked. The denial was fading, replaced by a cold, creeping horror. You go home, Dr. Russo said. You act normal. You verify. You find the source. Can you do that? I thought of Raymond lying in that bed, awake, trapped, watching me read the newspaper, watching Marcus smile and lie, watching Tanya steal my money. For 9 years, a dark, cold rage ignited in my gut. It wasn't a fire. It was ice. Yes, I said. I can verify. I drove home in a daze. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and black. I walked into the empty house. It felt different now. It felt like a crime scene. I went straight to the medical cart. I grabbed the bottle, labeled Bach. I opened it. The pills were small, round, white. They looked innocent. I went to the kitchen and grabbed a knife. I took one pill and cut it in half. It was dense. I went to the bathroom cabinet, digging through the back where I kept the old expired medicines. I found a bottle from 5 years ago, before Marcus took over the coordination. I compared them. The old pill was marked with a code, TV 4096. The new pill in the bottle labeled with the same name was marked Teva 833. I pulled out my phone and Googled the codes. TV 4096. Baclofen, 10 milligrams. Teva, 833. Clonazepam, 2 miligramas. Clonazepam, a benzodiazepine, a sedative. They had switched the pills. They were putting high-strength tranquilizers in a bottle labeled for mild muscle, relaxants. My knees gave out. I sat on the cold tile floor, clutching the bottles. Why? Money. It was always money. If Raymond recovered, the disability payments stopped. The insurance payout for permanent total disability would be investigated. If he recovered, he would tell me about the accident. The accident. I was in the driveway the next morning, staring at the spot where my old Buick leaked oil, when a beat-up tow truck rumbled up the street. It slowed down and pulled into my drive. A woman hopped out. She was big, shaped like a barrel, with grease-stained coveralls and lokes pulled back in a thick ponytail. Shayla, Tanya's old friend from high school, the one who never left the South Side. Miss Gloria, Shayla grunted, wiping her hands on a rag. Shayla, I said, wary. What do you want? Looking for Tanya, Shayla said. She spit on the asphalt. She ain't answering her phone. She's not here, I said. Figures, Shayla said. She owes me, Miss Gloria. Big time. Gambling debt. I carried her for 3 months, but my bookie ain't as nice as me. Tanya gambles, I asked. Another piece of the puzzle. Tanya does a lot of things, Shayla said. She leaned against her truck. Look, tell her, I need the $5,000 by Friday or I start taking parts off that BMW. She borrowed $5,000 from me yesterday, I said quietly, to pay a balloon payment on the condo. Shayla laughed, a harsh barking sound. Balloon payment. Tanya rents that condo. Miss Gloria, she don't own nothing. She took your money to pay the sharks in Rosemont. I felt the blood drain from my face. Shayla saw my expression. Her face softened slightly. You didn't know? No, I said. Shayla looked at the ground, kicking a loose stone. She's a bad seed. Miss Gloria, always was. Even back before, before what? I asked. Shayla hesitated. She looked around the empty street. Before the accident, Shayla said, her voice dropping. You remember the crash, the black ice. I was driving, I said. I lost control. Yeah, Shayla said. That's what the cops said. But a few weeks before that, Tanya came to my shop asking questions. What kind of questions? About brake lines, Shayla said. About how AB systems work. About how to make a caliper seize up without it looking like sabotage. The world stopped spinning. It just froze. She asked you how to sabotage brakes, I whispered. I told her to get lost, Shayla said. I thought she was joking or watching too much TV or something. But then you crashed and Tanya got that big insurance payout. She was always bragging about being the beneficiary of her daddy's policy. Shayla looked me in the eye. I never told nobody. Who's going to believe a grease monkey over a grieving daughter? But seeing you now, paying her debts, it ain't right. I walked up to I grabbed her greasy coveralls. I was 68, but I had the grip of a woman who raised 3 children alone before Raymond. Will you testify? I hissed. Whoa, Miss Gloria. Shayla pulled back. I ain't talking to cops. I got a record. You want your $5,000? I asked. You help me nail her and I'll give you 10. Shayla narrowed her eyes. You serious? I have never been more serious in my life. I needed more. Shayla was hearsay. I needed a witness who was in the room. Bobby Jenkins, the nurse who vanished. I spent the afternoon on the phone. I called every agency in the state. Finally, I found A.R. Jenkins working at a hospice in Evanston, an hour away. I drove my Buick. It shuddered on the highway, struggling to hit 65, but I pushed it. I found him in the parking lot during a shift change. He looked older, tired, smoking a cigarette with nervous, jerky movements. Bobby, he jumped, dropping the cigarette. He squinted at me. Miss Williams, I need to talk to you, Bobby. I can't, he said, backing away. I signed an NDA. Your son-in-law Marcus isn't here, I said, and unless you want to be an accessory to attempted murder, you will talk to me. He froze. Raymond is awake, I said. He's been awake the whole time. You knew, didn't you? Bobby began to cry, silent, shaking sobs. I tried to tell you, he whispered. That day, I left. I told you the meds were too high. I told you he was following me with his eyes. And Marcus fired you, I said. He threatened me, Bobby said. He said he'd have my license revoked. He said I was incompetent. I have kids, Miss Williams. I needed the job. I'm not blaming you, I said, but I need you to go on record. I need you to tell the police about the threats, about the dosages. He's a devil, Bobby shuddered. Him and that wife of his. They used to talk about it when they thought I was out of the room, about how long it was taking, about waiting for the inheritance. Write it down, I said, handing him a notepad from my purse. Everything. I got back home at midnight. I didn't sleep. I went up to the attic. I dug through the boxes of tax returns. Dust motes danced in the beam of my flashlight. I found the file marked Insurance 2016. I opened it. There it was. The Accident Indemnity Rider, Policy Audit, DSOR 29A, taken out 6 months before the crash. Payout, $2.5 million for permanent disability. Beneficiary trust, the Williams Family Trust. Trustee, Tanya Williams. I pulled the bank records for the trust. I had signed the power of attorney over to Tanya right after the crash, when I was out of my mind with grief and guilt. The statements were a horror story. Transfer to Shell Corp, $50,000. Transfer to offshore Cayman, $100,000. Cash withdrawal, $10,000. They had drained it. $2.50 million. Gone. Spent on condos, cars, gambling, and keeping my husband in a coma so the checks would keep clearing. I went to the spy shop downtown. I paid cash. I need something that looks like a smoke detector. I told the clerk, but records in 4K with audio. I got just the thing. The clerk said, motion activated, Wi-Fi enabled, uploads to the cloud. No cloud, I said, local storage, SD card. I don't want anything going over the internet where they might see it. I bought it. I went home. I waited until the nurse shift was over, and I was alone. I stood on a chair, my old legs wobbling. I unscrewed the real smoke detector above Raymond's bed. I replaced it with the camera. It looked identical. I climbed down. I checked the feed on a burner tablet I'd bought. The image was crisp. I could see Raymond's face. I could see the medicine table. I'm watching you, I whispered to the empty room. Saturday came again. I sat in the shed, staring at the tablet screen. I had told them I was going for a walk. I watched Tanya and Marcus enter the room. Marcus didn't even look at Raymond. He went straight to the cart. Did you bring the crushed ones? Tanya asked. The audio was crystal clear. Yes, Marcus said. He pulled a baggie from his pocket. Blue powder, double dose today. Your mother was asking questions about his eyes moving. Just give it to him, Tanya said nervously. Make sure he's out. If he blinks while she's looking, we're screwed. Marcus mixed the powder into the applesauce. He leaned over my husband. He shoved the spoon into Raymond's mouth. Swallow it, old man, he hissed. I watched, tears streaming down my face. I recorded every second. I waited until they left. I rushed into the house. I needed to secure that SD card. I needed to make copies. I climbed up on the chair. My hands were sweating. I reached for the detector. Mama, I froze. Tanya was standing in the doorway. She had come back. I forgot my purse, she said. She looked at me. She looked at the chair. She looked at the smoke detector in my hand. What are you doing? She asked. Changing the battery. I lied. Marcus walked in behind her. He looked sharper. He saw the device. He saw the tiny slot on the side for the SD card. That's not a smoke detector, he said. His voice was ice. He crossed the room in 3 strides. He grabbed the chair and shook it. I stumbled, dropping the device. It hit the floor with a crack. The plastic casing popped open. The SD card skittered across the hardwood. No, I yelled. Marcus was faster. He lunged. His clean fingers snatched the card. Give that to me, I roared, scrambling to my feet. What's on here, Gloria? He asked, holding it up to the light, spying on us in our own house. It's my house, I screamed. And that is evidence. Evidence of what? Tanya asked, stepping between us. She pushed me back. You're losing it, Mama. Paranoia. Dementia. I saw you. I pointed at them. I saw you poison him. Marcus laughed. It was a dry, brittle sound. You saw nothing. He walked into the kitchen. I ran after him, but Tanya held me back. Let me go. I struggled. But she was younger, heavier, but Marcus stood over the sink. He held the SD card over the drain. Don't, I begged. Please. He dropped it. He flipped the switch for the garbage disposal. Crunch, the sound of metal and plastic. Being shredded was the loudest sound I had ever heard. It lasted 3 seconds, then silence. Oops, Marcus said. Slippery fingers. He turned on the faucet, washing the debris away. You have no proof, Gloria, he whispered. Just the ramblings of a senile old woman who forgot to take her blood pressure pills. They left. I stood in the kitchen, listening to the water run. I had lost. I went anyway. I sat across from Detective Maria Santos. She was a tired-looking woman with a coffee stain on her blazer and eyes that had seen too much darkness. I told her everything. The doctor's report, the swapped pills, Shayla Bobby, the destroyed camera. Detective Santos listened. She took notes, but she didn't look happy. Mrs. Williams, she said, rubbing her temples, I believe you. I do. But without that video, it's your word against theirs. The toxicology report proves he's drugged, but it doesn't prove who drugged him. They can claim you did it. They can claim it was an accidental overdose by a confused caregiver. They destroyed the evidence. We can't prove that, Detective Santos said. We can't get a warrant based on a destroyed SD card we never saw. We need something concrete. We need a confession. Or we need to catch them in the act. They won't do it while I'm watching, I said. Not anymore. They know I know. Detective Santos leaned forward. Then we need to make them panic. Criminals make mistakes when they think the walls are closing in. We sat in the small interrogation room with Dr. Russo. The plan was risky. It was dangerous. We need to raise the stakes, Detective Santos said. They're keeping him sedated to hide the fraud and the attempted murder. What happens if he's about to be cured? They can't cure him, I said. They don't know that, Dr. Russo said. I can write a report, a fake one, saying I found significant brain activity, that I've engaged a specialist, Dr. Faulkner from Northwestern, the best in the world. He's coming to do a deep brain stimulation assessment. If it works, Raymond talks within 24 hours. If they think he's going to talk, I said, my blood running cold, they'll kill him. Exactly, Detective Santos said. That's when we catch them. I waited 3 days. I let them think I was defeated. I stayed in the house. Then I called Tanya. Mama, she answered. She sounded wary. Tanya, I said, forcing my voice to sound excited. Manic, you won't believe it. Dr. Russo called. She found something in the new scans. What? Tanya asked. Activity, I said. Real conscious activity. She says he's responding. She's flying in a specialist, a Dr. Faulkner. He's coming tomorrow night. Tomorrow. Tanya's voice cracked. Yes. He says if we start the new treatment immediately, Raymond could be speaking by the weekend. Isn't it a miracle? Yeah, Tanya whispered. A miracle. I need you both here, I said. To meet him, 8 p.m. tomorrow. We'll be there, Tanya said. Detective Santos played me the wiretap recording an hour later. I sat in the surveillance van parked 2 streets over. Marcus, he can't talk. If he talks, he tells them about the brake lines. He tells them about the money. We go to prison for life. Tanya, what do? We can't stop the doctor. He can't be examined if he's dead. Tanya. Babe? No, I can't. Do you want to die in a cage? Because that's the alternative. We give him the whole bottle. A heart attack. It happens. He's weak. The doctor arrives. He's gone. Tragic end. Tanya, the golden shot. Marcus, tomorrow night, before this Faulkner guy gets there. I took off the headphones. My hands were steady now. The fear was gone. There was only the mission. We have conspiracy. Detective Santos said, that's enough to arrest them now. No, I said. If you arrest them for conspiracy, they'll get a good lawyer. They'll say they were just venting emotional distress. They'll get a plea deal. 5 years out in 2. I looked at Detective Santos. I saw the principal in my eyes. The woman who knows how to handle troublemakers. I want them to put the needle in. I want attempted murder. I want life. Detective Santos looked at me. She nodded. It's dangerous, Gloria. You'll be in the room. I'm not afraid, I said. Let's finish this. The house was quiet, too quiet. I sat in the recliner. I was wearing a wire taped to my chest. A small earpiece was deep in my ear canal. We're in position. Detective Santos's voice crackled. Perimeter is set. Shayla is blocking the back alley with her tow truck. SWAT is in the van. Copy, I whispered. I looked at Raymond. I had told him everything, even though I didn't know if he understood. Just a little longer, Ray, I said. The cavalry is here. The doorbell rang at 7:30 p.m. early. They wanted to get it done before the doctor arrived. I opened the door. They walked in. They were dressed in black. Appropriate. Hi, Mama, Tanya said. She was sweating. Her skin was gray. Marcus was calm, terrifyingly calm. He carried a large backpack. Where's this doctor? Marcus asked. He's running late, I said. Stuck in traffic from the airport. Good, Marcus said. That gives us time to prepare him. He walked to the medical cart. He reached into his backpack. He didn't pull out the pill bottle. He pulled out a syringe. It was already filled with a clear liquid. What's that? I asked, stepping closer. Just a vitamin booster, Marcus said, tapping the plastic barrel to help his strength for the exam. I didn't authorize that, I said. You don't know what he needs, Gloria, he said. You're just an old woman. He moved to the foreport on Raymond's arm. Tanya, he snapped. Hold her. Tanya grabbed my arm. Her grip was weak, clammy. I'm sorry, Mama, she whispered. It has to be this way. Marcus uncapped the needle. He leaned over. Say goodbye, Raymond, he whispered. He lowered the needle toward the port. Now, I screamed. I wrenched my arm free from Tanya. She was weak, pathetic, no match for a woman fueled by a decade of rage. I lunged at Marcus. I grabbed his wrist just as the needle touched the plastic valve. I don't think so, I roared. He shrieked, trying to stab me with it. We grappled. He was strong, fueled by desperation. Crash. The front door exploded inward. Police, get down. Get down. Women and men in tactical gear flooded the room. Red laser dots danced on the walls. Marcus froze. He dropped the syringe. It rolled across the floor, the lethal fluid leaking out. Tanya bolted. She ran for the back door. She's a runner, Detective Santos yelled. I heard the back door slam open. Then a thud. Then a scream. I walked to the back window. Shayla was there. She had tripped Tanya. She was sitting on her, smoking a cigarette. Going somewhere. Tanya, Shayla grinned. Detective Santos, let me watch from behind the glass. They put them in separate rooms. The prisoner's dilemma. Detective Santos walked into Tanya's room first. She threw a file on the table. We have the syringe, Detective Santos said. Pure potassium chloride. Stops the heart instantly. Untraceable unless you know to look for it. We also have the wiretap. And Tanya crumpled. She wept. She blubbered. She was a child again. A broken, spoiled child. It was him, she sobbed. It was all Marcus. He made me do it. He said we needed the money. He cut the brake lines. I just looked up how to do it. You cut the brake lines? Detective Santos asked, pausing. No, he did. I just held the flashlight. I closed my eyes. She had held the flashlight while he severed the lines that crippled her father. The trial was the sensation of Chicago, the House of Cards case. I took the stand. I wore my best dress. I looked the jury in the eye. I told them about the sheets, the feeding tube, the $300 balance. Then Detective Santos played the tapes. The courtroom went silent as the grave when Marcus's voice filled the air. He can't be examined if he's dead. Tanya didn't cry. She sat there, staring at me with pure hatred. She knew I had beaten her. The old woman, the retired principal. The verdict took 2 hours. Tanya Williams, guilty. Conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, elder abuse. Sentence, 25 years without parole. Marcus Andre Johnson, guilty. Attempted murder, aggravated assault, fraud. Sentence, life in prison. As the bailiffs led them away, Tanya looked back at me. She mouthed the word, Mama. I turned my back. I had no daughter. We moved to the finest neurological rehab center in the state, Illinois State Rehab Center. I paid for it with the recovered money from the trust, what was left of it, and the sale of Tanya's condo. The withdrawal was brutal. For weeks, Raymond shook, sweated, and screamed silently as the drugs left his system. I sat by his bed every day. I held his hand. I'm here, Ray, I said. I'm not going anywhere. Slowly, the fog lifted. The reflex exercises started to work. A finger moved, then a toe, then an eyelid. Dr. Russo was right. The pathways were there. They had just been asleep. It was a Tuesday, 6 months after the raid. I was reading to him the autobiography of Malcolm X, his favorite. I finished a chapter and closed the book. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden light over the room. I felt a squeeze. I looked down at my hand. His fingers were curled around mine, tight. I looked at his face. His eyes were open, clear, present. His lips moved. No sound came out at first. He frowned, frustrated. He tried again. Gee, I leaned in close, tears spilling onto my cheeks. I'm here, Ray, speak. Gloria, he whispered. It was rough, like gravel, but it was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. He took a breath. You look tired. I laughed, a deep belly laugh that shook my whole body. I am tired, Ray, I said, kissing his forehead, but I'm still standing. Conclusion. The house is quiet now, but it's a good quiet. The medical equipment is gone. We have a live-in nurse, a kind woman named Maria, who actually cares. Raymond is in a wheelchair, but he's reclaiming his life. He can feed himself. He can speak. We play dominoes in the evenings. He usually wins. We don't talk about Tanya. We don't talk about Marcus. They are ghosts, locked away in concrete boxes, fading from memory. I walk out to the shed sometimes. I started working on a new project, simple, sturdy. I learned that justice isn't about revenge. Revenge is burning the house down. Justice is reinforcing the walls, trapping the rats, and making sure the structure stands long after the storm has passed. My name is Gloria Jean Williams. I'm 68 years old, and my foundation is solid as a rock. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.